They need the domain eventually. It's only going to grow in value. Hey, Chris Zuiker with Media Options. I help companies to acquire the raw version of their brand and broker some of the best domains on the planet. Check that out over at Media Options. Check out chriszuiker.com. Check out my Do a Daily podcast, although I've missed a couple days, but I have like 800 or so episodes and stories of domaining and stories, negotiating, both on trying to acquire domain name and sell domain name, and just give you some insights into the industry and insights into how people think and how deals get done. Anyways, it's been a while since I've done YouTube, so I want to jump back on here and just kind of share some thoughts and share what I'm seeing recently. The first thing is that we're just really seeing the market pick up, and we're seeing a lot of acquisitions. We did probably double our business last year, just pretty much every broker is doing very, very well. And with that, there's a lot of negotiating that's going on. I had someone come back to me today, and I'm not going to tell you who it is. It's not fair. But they came back and said this comment is like, hey, they're going to need the domain eventually, and it's only going to grow in value. Now, those are very true statements. Very true statements with domain names. I mean, domains have been one of the best asset classes to invest in over the last 20 years. They just have. I mean, look at two-letter domains. They were sold in the 5 figures, 6 figures, and then now they're in the 7 figures pretty regularly. Okay, it's very, very, they're in the 7 figures. I mean, it's very rare that a two-letter domain sells in the 6 figures. Usually, it's an investment. So it's a great investment. I mean, like they are. Most companies, they do need the domain eventually. So there's a very true statements, but that. The problem with that statement is that it's very easy to miss the forest for the trees. I don't know, use any analogy you want, but it's very easy to miss the reality of getting a deal done, okay? Because that doesn't mean that just because it grows in value, they're going to value it higher in their offer. So I wrote a couple points down here. So the first one is that, my kind of theory of negotiating is that imagine there's these two bar charts, okay? There's a bar chart for the seller, there's the bar chart for the buyer, okay? Now this bar chart for the seller is a range that they're going to sell this domain for. And then there's a range that the buyer is going to buy the domain, right? So they typically want to come down, let's say it's like even bigger than that, it's like down to here, okay, below, right? They're going to come in very low, but there's a range of what as far as the peak where they'll go. And now this is related to at that time, okay, with that management, with that funding, and everything involved. Now, part of your strategy negotiating in this is to find out, okay, if you're the buyer, find out where's the seller's bottom, okay? And is that somewhere within your range, right? For the seller, it's to find out where is the buyer's top, okay? And is that within your range, okay? Would you adjust that range, okay, based on kind of the parameters of what's happening in the marketplace? Now, so that's kind of the general strategy, right? So find out where they're at. And can that be stretched? Now, a lot of times what happens is that the buyers, they think their budget is between this and this, okay? They think maybe their budget's capped at, let's say, 15, 25, 35, 75, $1 million, just pick a number, it doesn't matter. But once once you start negotiating, you're able to stretch that and to give them more information. Now, what I say is, I look at the sales process 2 ways, okay? There's worldview, self-view, and roadmap. I'm sorry, three different ways. Worldview is the way that they view the world, okay? And so part of this negotiation process is to show them that, no, it's very important, okay? Part of the discovery when they get a negotiating domain name, they talk to people, talk to their fellow investors, talk to their marketing, talk to their fellow startup founders, is they realize, wow, yeah, this is really important, okay? And their worldview expands, and with that expansion comes that increase in their budget. And so, you're able to stretch that in the negotiation process. Okay, that's why you want to get a dialogue going here. Okay, but it's kind of there's these ranges that happen. Now, what happens is that from the buying standpoint, from the seller standpoint, if a seller has just completely unrealistic expectations for the domain name, and it happens, I had someone come back to me. They had like a .com.au domain, and they're like, we want over $3 million for this. I'm thinking, listen, I literally bought this. It was it was amazing domain, okay? And we bought it for mid 6 figures. This was okay, this is the .com, and the .au you want over $3 million because it's such a great experience, such a great domain. But it's a much smaller market, right? So now it's you're just way overvalued. It's never going to sell, okay? It's just not happening. It's just way, way over the value for that domain, and the other options kick in. Okay, there's other options out there. And so what happens is that there's just this unrealistic approach I'm not going to, gosh, I could go on forever with this, but I guess it comes, I wrote a couple of other things down here, like what's the type of the domain that you're going after, right? Well, who's to go after, right? I talk about the 5 different buyer types. There's the hobbyist, there's the small/regional entrepreneur, there's the, the small/local entrepreneur, there's a regional entrepreneur slash national, okay, this kind of regional kind of goes back and forth. There's the Bible scalable, and there's that serial entrepreneur. Now, where does your domain fall within this spectrum? A lot of times, it falls within that lower level, okay? So your domain is going to attract a certain type of company, okay, a certain type of startup. Now, I'd say attracted. I mean, by default, one-word domain name attracts everything, right? But like your 2 or 3-word domain name is not going to attract that Bible scalable startup, okay? Or if it does attract them, there's just so many more options, okay? Especially if it's a made-up domain. So another point here is just that it's like what I see is that it's the journey of the company. And there's these inflection points that come along where a company reaches out to try to acquire the domain name. Okay, so if they're moving from that, let's say they're moving from like that local, that regional, that self-starting entrepreneur, and they're scaling up to that regional national. Well, guess what? This is like this inflection point where they come along and say, okay, I'm going to try for this brand. I'm going to try for my domain name. Okay, or if they're moving from that regional to that Bible scalable startup, and they're really starting to scale, they're moving to that. And these inflection points is what you really want to maximize. Okay, that's how you maximize your sales, is that you need to take advantage of that momentum that's taking place. Now, what happens is that a lot of times people think, well, they'll just wait. They're like, I'll just wait because they're going to see it eventually. But the reality is they don't, because what happens is that they price the pain into their marketing. Okay, they harden their marketing and they just don't come back. Okay. Because that momentum has shifted. Now, do they need the domain? A lot of times, absolutely. Like you can justify the ROI. You could justify it based on just one employee. Okay, would this produce much value as one employee over 5 years? Well, of course it would, right? Of course it would. And so, why don't you buy it, right? But they can't see that because of where they're at. They can't see that because they built into the pain. They can't see that because they've hardened their marketing. They can't see that because momentum has moved beyond that inflection point. And so, it's like this dance that takes place in this negotiation, right? This dance is like, from a selling standpoint, if you're selling it, like you want to maximize the momentum that's taking place at that time. Like there's very few buyers who have this burning desire, like this commitment and this burning desire that this is like, they're going to do whatever it takes for this domain, and they're going to wait 3 to 5 years because they're going to achieve this and they're going to get this. Very few. I don't know, 1%. I mean, I don't know. Look at typical 80-20 curve, and then just dissect that down to the very the very extreme part. And so, like, you got to capitalize this momentum. If you don't, what happens is that they just move on. The wind goes out, and I've seen this over and over again. I just had a deal the other day. We offered $500,000 for this. It was a 4-letter domain, but it was missing vowels. Okay, so it was kind of like one of those hacks. And listen, it was cool, when I was talking to the seller, and he wasn't looking to sell. We were trying to acquire this. I said, listen, if you came to me, I'd say maybe $5,000 to $15,000, maybe, right? Because you're looking to sell it, and someone's going to come along there and buy it. Maybe you could stretch 25, maybe 75 if there was that perfect buyer. But I said, our buyer's offering $500,000 for your domain name. This is just insane. It's great. This is the best offer you will ever 100% unequivocally ever receive. And they came back and I want $1.5 million, $1 million, 1.2. Okay, can you get to $1 million? And I was like, they're capped. This is it. At some point they have to move on. And in this scenario, what happened is that they waited a month, and I didn't talk to my buyer for a month. And they came back and they said, well, hey, okay, great. Can you get to 600? I said, well, I'll try. Let me see. I said, I haven't talked to them for a month. And then they came back and said, well, can you, we'll take 500, let me go and talk over with my team. And I went back to the buyer, and they were like, listen, we moved on. Chris, we moved on. We already chose this brand, and we branded this, and we moved on. Now the brand was horrible. I don't know. I'm not seeing it. But listen, they chose it. They moved on. The offer's off the table. They moved on. It happens. I mean, I see it. I see it in the back end all the time. The best offers, you pass on them because you're trying to maximize this. You're trying to get too much, and when the buyer and you can it's kind of this intuitive approach to negotiation. Okay. Another story is I just had a guy come back out to me yesterday, and he's like, he's like, hey, Chris, he's like, I agree with you. He's like, I had a $5 million offer on my domain name, and I held out for like 8 million to 10 million. And, thinking I could push them. And he said they walked in a different domain. And he said, yeah, they showed me the domain they walked to. And it's like, they were serious. Like, I left this opportunity. And I've got no idea when we'll ever see this, like an offer at that level again. And you have to realize that it's timing. It's timing. The perfect buyer. This perfect buyer is matched up with the funding. It's matched up with the timing of the marketplace. It's matched up with the timing in the team that they have, in this momentum as far as where they're going. And listen, not to overcomplicate it, okay, because there's your domain is going to attract a certain buying type, a certain buyer, a certain range, but it's all things to take into consideration when you're trying to negotiate. And lately, with the momentum in the marketplace, I see a lot of great offers coming across, and I see people just holding out. And I can tell you, like, this momentum is not going to keep up. I mean, there's clouds in the distance with like economic changes. There's printing trillions of dollars. Who knows where that's going to lead. There's industries that are getting more mature, and because of the maturity, you've already kind of solidified the players in it, and with that solidification comes solidification of branding, and so they're just not going to reach out to get these new brands. Okay, so just a lot of thoughts to consider. I hope I helped you. It's just some things that I think about. A lot of it's intuitive. A lot of it's just how I look at negotiations and selling. So hope you enjoyed it. If you found any value in this, share it up. Go to my YouTube channel, check my other videos up. Go to chriszuiker.com, check out my podcast. Made a podcast today with a little more information. Check out Media Options. Check out some of the awesome domains that we are brokering. You just got done listening to another episode of .com Strategies. Check us out online at chriszuiker.com and at mediaoptions.com.